This is episode 9 of the Whole Circle podcast, and we're interviewing the beautiful Irena Macri. Welcome to the Whole Circle podcast, a show about health, wellness, food and fun. So join us, Tracy and Joe, as we interview some of the world's most amazing health and wellness experts and find out how to live your best life ever. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, so sit back and enjoy the show.
We have known Irena for about 12 months now. She's kind, she's thoughtful, she's generous, and she's just beautiful. Irena lives a paleo lifestyle and started her blog back in 2012. She wanted to show that eating paleo isn't always bland and boring, and that eating a lifestyle with fresh, beautiful produce can be yummy. Irena is a recipe developer and cookbook author. You may have seen some of her books in Big W, Kmart, or the like. Her recipes are delicious. She loves to travel, hike, rock climb, and so much more. She's always on the road doing fun things, and today we look forward to talking to her about how she stays healthy while on the road, which is quite a hard thing for a lot of us. So a big welcome all the way from England, Irena Macri.
Yay! Clap, clap, clap.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. We're super pumped about this. It's going to be fun.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yay!
So you're a paleo lifestyle. So for those that aren't sure about the paleo diet, if you could just explain a little bit about that and a little bit about, I guess, what that entails, that would be great.
Sure. So for those who are not familiar with the paleo diet, which is probably a lot less people than it was when I started out because it was quite new back then and seems like gone quite mainstream now. It's a way of eating. I don't like to call it a diet because it's not really it's not dieting per se, but it's just a way of eating, or it's a philosophy that is based around the way that ancestors used to eat. And not in a way that we're trying to mimic the way that people that used to live in the caves ate, because, they didn't cook and they didn't have iPhones and, they didn't have olive oil and stuff like that. But it's basically just looking at the way our grandparents used to eat. And that means a lot less processed foods to begin with, which you guys are big advocates of. It's eating food in its kind of whole form in the way it comes. And it's focusing on very nutrient-dense ingredients and foods such as primarily protein, so meat, fish, seafood, eggs, lots of vegetables, leafy greens, starchy vegetables, tubers, so sweet potatoes and pumpkin, some fruit, obviously, and nuts and seeds, and healthy fats, which is sort of coconut oil, olive oil, avocados themselves, coconut milk, that sort of thing. And the foods that we avoid within the paleo kind of framework, things like refined grains and whole grains as well, and I can explain that a little bit more. Legumes for the most part, dairy for the most part. Again, I say for the most part because there are various caveats around people's sensitivities and what they can afford, where they live, who else they have to feed in the household. So, you can be flexible there. But essentially, it's no grains, legumes, dairy, no processed sugar or kind of those processed vegetable and seed oil. So we're avoiding things like corn oil, canola, rapeseed, vegetable oil, which is not even made from vegetables, right? It's just man-produced sort of commercial oil that's just full of really inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids and a lot of other crap. So it's basically a crap-free diet. That is the easiest way to explain it. And really, it's very nutrient-dense because you're cutting out things like bread and pasta and rice, again, for the most part, and you're replacing it with vegetables. So as a result, you're eating very healthy kind of balanced meals, which is protein, veggies, and fat. And for those people that think that paleo is no carbohydrate diet, it's not true because all vegetables and fruits have carbohydrates and some of them quite high. So we do eat a lot of carbohydrates through that. But naturally, of course, it is lower in carbohydrates than, say, kind of a traditional Australian diet where you might have a sandwich for lunch and pasta for dinner and cereal or toast for breakfast. So it's just much lower, but it's still got carbohydrates. So in the nutshell, that's what it is. Of course, there are various shades of the paleo diet. Some people are very strict and they definitely go kind of very clean. They don't have coffee or they might not drink any wine or have any dairy whatsoever. For some people, and I kind of fall in that category, I've reintroduced some foods through experimentation and seeing what works for me personally. So I added some things like butter and ghee, a little bit of fermented dairy, so yogurt and cheese seems to be fine for me because it has a lot less lactose, or the sugar that some people are sensitive to, as you're familiar. And I've introduced things like quinoa, buckwheat, a little bit of white rice, some of those gluten-free ancient grains, which are quite nutrient dense, but they just need to be prepared in a way that makes them easier to digest. And, you know, I love wine and a little bit of dark chocolate, and I certainly love my coffee. So I'm not kind of, you know, probably the best example of a 100% paleo lifestyle, but I've made it work for me, and I love the way it makes me feel and how I've managed to make it quite accessible on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, that is awesome. And you mentioned that you make them easy to digest. So how do you prepare those foods? Like, was it the quinoa?
The what? Rice.
And buckwheat, I think you said.
Yeah, so this might be interesting to some people because they're not familiar with it, but the reason why we avoid grains and legumes in the paleo framework diet is because they contain certain anti-nutrients that can be a little bit damaging or irritating for our gut system or gut lining. So, for example, gluten is one of those. It's a protein that is actually can be quite damaging to a lot of people and can cause various digestive issues, as well as there's links to kind of other mental well-being and things like that. Another one is lectins, and they're also found in and legumes and grains. It's also very difficult to digest, and it can impair the gut lining and you might have heard of the thing called leaky gut. So it just means that, you know, you're not absorbing the nutrients as well because your gut impaired, and you're going to get these little holes. And so the nutrients and things and anti-nutrients escape into the bloodstream and impact your gut flora as well. And phytates is another thing, and that's present in grains and legumes. And it's usually what it means that it binds certain minerals to themselves in the foods that you eat. Therefore, the body doesn't absorb as many minerals as it should. So you might be eating a lot of great because they're full of minerals, but they also have phytates or phytic acid, and which binds those minerals to it and not allowing your body to absorb it. So by preparing grains and legumes properly, which means soaking them before you cook them, it depends on how big the actual grain or the legume is. So if you're doing beans, like navy beans or chickpeas, they might need 6 to 8 hours of soaking in some salted water. If you're doing something like buckwheat or quinoa, because it's a much smaller grain, you can do it for 4 to 6 hours. And you can strain it. So soaking kind of neutralizes some of those anti-nutrients. It doesn't remove them necessarily. It doesn't remove gluten from wheat, but it does kind of remove some of the phytic acid and makes them easier to digest. Another thing you can do is then also ferment them or sprout them. So some people will soak the grains and then rinse them under water, drain them, and then leave them in a sieve or a bowl for up to 24 to 48 hours. And, you know, if you're doing buckwheat, it will kind of sprout a little bit. It gets a little tail. And so that sprouting and sometimes fermenting, so you're doing sourdough from wheat. That fermentation, it kind of breaks down some of the gluten. It breaks down some of those anti-nutrients in those foods. And it also activates certain enzymes, which makes those things a lot easier to digest and makes the nutrients that are available in those grains much more bioavailable for your body.
Oh, so interesting.
So all of a sudden, buckwheat becomes more nutritious when it's been soaked and sprouted. It's the same with cabbage. You know, with fermenting, I think you guys ferment quite a bit. Fermented vegetables are actually more nutritious than raw vegetables because the fermentation activates certain kind of enzymes and makes them easier to digest. And it actually creates new vitamins and minerals, or just makes them kind of more, saturated. So like cheese, for example, or yogurt, maybe not yogurt, but cheese and cabbage, they have like a K2 vitamin, which is very good for our bone health. And it's usually only found in fermented foods in high amounts. So that's why it's good to kind of ferment and soak and sprout. And it's a very ancient, old school sort of cultured tradition that our grandparents used to do for a long time. And my grandmother used to soak the beans and then cook them twice. So she would cook them once, then rinse the water and then cook them the second time. And when I was little, I was wondering why she does that. But it was basically to prevent you from having bloating and gas when you eat beans. And so now I know that, but I didn't know back then. So that's what you do with grains. So, for those people that want to continue to eat grains, it's just learning about kind of how to prepare them better so that, if you have bread, sourdough bread is the best bread to have because sourdough is a form of fermentation. So it actually contains less gluten than other types of bread. Same with rice and quinoa. So I always soak it before I cook it, basically. Sometimes fermented or sprouted if you have the time. It does require a bit of planning.
So interesting.
Yeah. So, Irena, how do you do that when you're traveling?
Okay, so then obviously I don't carry my fermentation jars and everything when I travel. That would just be crazy at the customs, wouldn't it, and security gates. But
I can imagine you going through customs with this big, look like an alcohol making kit, and you're like, right, what are you doing?
I know. I already struggle with our coffee gadgets because we're a bit of we coffee drinkers, so we bring our coffee AeroPress and our grinders and coffee beans and everything. So that raises some eyebrows.
Oh.
So that's my tip number one is if you're a coffee drinker and you're avoiding dairy, for example, like me, in coffee or sugar, I find that some of the coffee that you drink when you're on the road is terrible. So we just started bringing our own coffee with us, which we'll make in the room. It's also cheaper that way. My tips, I guess, I do bring some food with me. So, when you travel and when you're on the road, there are a couple of different things you can look at. One is, what do you eat when you're actually on the road? So if you're flying or if you're in the car or, doing a road trip. Another one is, what do you eat when you get to the destination? And how do you kind of find the logistics? Because different countries and different places will have different food available. So on the road, when I'm on the plane, I guess one of the things you can do is order a gluten-free meal. It will automatically kind of make your meal a little bit healthier, or a vegetarian meal if you like. I always bring some snacks. I've got little granola bars, some nuts, dried fruit, apple, things that I'm not going to squash, some carrot sticks, that sort of thing. Because the main thing is, when you're in between meals and you've got a few hours to go before you're going to get somewhere and be able to find something to eat, it's those periods when you're a little bit peckish that you usually make mistakes and go, oh, I'll just go and get a burger. It's just there. Or I'll go and pick up a packet of crisps. So if you just have something on you, A, it's cheaper, and B, you can actually control what you kind of have and what's in the food. So I do carry snacks. I often bring things with me, especially if I'm going to a country or destination where I'm not sure what's going to be available. So, we'll bring beef jerky often or biltong. We'll bring granola bars. I often bring my own granola in a bag. It could be muesli for somebody else because you can usually find yogurt, plain, full fat, kind of Greek type of yogurt. That's available in most countries. So, you know that you're going to be able to go and get a tub of that and then some fruit. And if you have your own muesli or granola, then that's your breakfast sorted. And you can have that in most hotel rooms, right? You just need a bowl and a spoon.
Yep.
Another one that I do often is if we're going on a road trip, I will usually make a little bit of food. So something that's portable, whether it's egg muffins or baked sweet potato and grilled chicken, or I can make banana bread, just have like little containers with some salami or, whatever kind of smoked meat that's not going to go off. Good quality, cherry tomatoes, that sort of thing. I just have a few of those because you can just eat that whenever you want. I mean, normally you will find places where you can get something that you can eat. I mean, so much better than these days than it used to be. But it is for those moments when you just, you're going to be in that little small airport and there's not going to be anything open or it's just going to be down to KFC, then you're better off just having a few options. So that's when you're kind of on the road. But once you actually get to the destination, my kind of tips are, first, I try to book accommodation that has a little kitchen or at least a fridge. So if it's Airbnb or if it's a house or if it's an apartment or even a hotel room, I always try and get something with a refrigerator or a kettle or, ideally a kitchenette, because the one thing that is hard in most countries, especially in Europe, is breakfast, I find, for me. And because we are used to eating cooked breakfast or at least protein-heavy breakfast, you know, we usually have to kind of have croissants or pastries, you know, bread, and it's a very common breakfast. So as long as we have somewhere that we can store some, as I said before, yogurt and some granola, and I will often buy eggs if I have a kitchen. So we usually try and have our own breakfast at home before we go out, unless you're somewhere that, you know, has breakfast and you can kind of have that. Buffet breakfasts are usually okay because you can find, you know, omelets or boiled eggs and some ham and cheese and kind of nicer types of breads if you eat bread and fruit. But having something where you can cook, it's going to be cheaper, and you can, you know, it's really fun to go to the local supermarkets. I love doing that in countries because you get to see what they eat and find some foods. So I stock up on that, and also a couple of lunch options. So I usually buy a few tins of tuna or salmon, maybe like a cold soup that you can open and reheat. You can find them kind of in the refrigerated sections. They're usually quite good. They don't have too many kind of additives and stuff like that. And some fruit and salad stuff, depending on where you are. So having those things is great. And then other than that,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, just have something stocked up, because you often, you know, when you're traveling, you'll have breakfast and then you're going to be running around, and then you sort of, if you forget to eat lunch at a certain time in Europe, especially, you're going to miss that window, and then you can't find lunch anywhere. You know, it's like they eat between X, Y, and, you know, between 2 and 3 or 1 and 2, or 1 and 3. And then you sort of, if you're in Spain and you're trying to find food at 4 p.m., good luck. It's not going to happen. So you're not going to eat until 9 because, you know, unless you want tapas. Right. So yeah, it's just kind of learning a little bit about the country you're going to or the place you're going to, and then bringing some stuff with you, or buying stuff in the local supermarket or market, fresh food market. They're kind of the eating in the road. And other than that, you know, it's just learning, checking out some places online. Luckily, we have internet now. We can research ahead of time places to go out for dinner, or, you know, places where you can go and get some healthy food, which is really good. And I also don't worry too much if I eat something that's not what I would normally eat, because I'm traveling and I'm having fun, and, you know, I want to try things for research and whatnot.
That's the thing. We had a lady email in to us, I think it was just yesterday, and she's so stressed because they're going away for 2 weeks. And she said, normally, you know, I would be so excited. I don't have to cook for 2 weeks. So I'm not sure if she was going on a cruise or going on something where all the meals were provided, but it seemed that way. She was going somewhere where meals were provided. And she said, I'm just so stressed. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know when I'm going to get fed. And, you know, and we just sort of had to try to say to her that stress is one of the biggest, you know, inflammation things that we can do on our body. And like, that's almost as bad, or it is as bad as eating the wrong food, like getting stressed about it. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You have no idea how many people ask me the same question. Same thing, you know, people kind of go, they know I travel a lot, and they often get so stressed about not being able to find foods to be able to stay compliant that stress, and on everyday basis, not just when they're traveling, you know, they stress so much about everything that it creates a very unhealthy relationship with food, and kind of, you know, it sort of counteracts the whole purpose of eating healthier, is that it's all about building a good relationship with food and enjoying food, you know. So if you start stressing about every single morsel that you put in your mouth, you're going to become pretty obsessed, and it's very unhealthy, and it is quite stressful. So I always tell people, you know, just having a little bit of, you know, gelato and pizza or pasta when you're traveling through Italy, it's not going to be that bad, unless you're celiac and that's a real, you know, or you have serious sensitivities. Yeah, sure, you have to avoid those foods, but having that every now and then is fine. It's more kind of a long-term habits that we're trying to change, not those quick little, you know, not, I wouldn't call it impulses. Yeah. The fun stuff, but it has to be like, my advice is make it mindful and be conscious of the choices that you make. So if you're going to have, you know, a lovely bottle of wine and a cheese platter when you're out, or, you know, whatever that kind of indulgent meal is for you, just be super conscious that you're making that choice because it's the right thing to have at the time, because you're with friends and you're enjoying it. It's a cultural experience. Be very mindful and enjoy every bite that you have, and know that, the next meal you're going to have, you're going to choose something that's healthier or that's more in line with what you normally eat. Because
I can tell you, if I go to Italy, I'll be eating pizza.
Yeah. And so would I. And, because I'm not, I'm a human being who likes to enjoy life at the end of the day. It's just that for the most part, when I'm at home, I have more choices, and I make, I choose to eat in a certain way. But when you travel, you have to break the rules a little bit, for sure.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's about being we try not to use the word fun, but food shouldn't be stressful. Food should be enjoyed and nourish your body and all of that. But it's also, like you said, if you're in another country, try the snail, try the pizza, try the whatever that country is offering, because that's part of the journey, and that's part of the traveling, and that's part of the excitement of being in a different country.
It's true. And a few stories that I've heard, this is actually on multiple occasions, is people with quite severe digestive issues, when they go on holidays, they report a reduction in their digestive problems, even though they're eating the foods that they normally wouldn't choose to eat when they're at home, mainly because they're more relaxed. It's amazing. And I was reading, follow this lady on Instagram, and she's in Italy at the moment. I think she's a paleo blogger, something like that. And normally she advocates, to avoid grains and processed sugar and stuff like that. And she was posting a few pictures of, eating delicious donuts or, something like a Sardinian dessert or pasta. And she said, it's amazing. I normally have digestive issues as soon as I eat these foods. But because I'm in Italy, and I'm eating food of really high quality, because, they add hardly any additives in Italy. It's very, very based on whole foods, and very good produce, very seasonal. And because you're relaxed and you're walking every day, you're much more mobile, you're active, you're on holiday, all of a sudden your digestive functionality is much, it's just your digestive tract's much better in general. So you can actually eat those foods. And I find that with myself as well. Things that I can't eat normally on a daily basis, I all of a sudden can tolerate much better, because in general, I'm just more relaxed on holidays.
Yeah, that is really interesting, because it makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you don't eat in a rush like you normally do. You slow down, you sit and you have a bit of wine. And I think digestion is a very interesting kind of, beast, because, for the most part, again, coming back to stress, 80% of stress, of digestive issues are related to stress. Whether it's eating too fast, eating on the go, not being mindful, eating, kind of just being stressed in general and skipping meals or eating too much. It's always coming back to that, the stress.
Yes, I was about to say that the more research I do about food, everything seems to come back to stress.
Yep. It's very true. I mean, from emotional eating, I mean, that's one element of that. We tend to eat when we're stressed, down to how your actual gut health works. I mean, gut health is impacted by the stress dramatically, and down to what foods you're able to digest and how. My partner, very, very, very sensitive to stress, and it reflects in his digestion straight away. So he, all of a sudden he won't be able to tolerate eggs and beef as well as he would normally. And we know it's usually stress related. So yeah, it's a fascinating area of research, and I'm sure that we'll see more and more of that come up in the news headlines and stuff like that.
It is fascinating. So Irena, if you could give your top 5 tips, just to recap a bit, your top 5 tips to eat healthy while traveling, what would they be?
Number 1 would be to research the destination that you're going to learn a little bit about what the traditional foods that they eat and what's going to be available in where you're going, which will then tell you whether you need to bring some stuff with you, such as snacks or maybe some breakfast options and things like that. I find lunches and dinners are usually easier to find than breakfasts. Have a few things for the road, so for the airports and road trips where there are definitely a lot less healthy options. You're not going to have a fresh food market in the airport. So bring some stuff with you. Number 4 would be to just relax, I suppose, and not be so harsh on yourself when you do eat something that's a little bit out of line or whatnot, and just really enjoy it. And number 5 would be try something you've never tried before.
Oh, I love that.
Be brave. Go where you wouldn't normally go. Have the snails.
Do you know what? My husband and I, we had a night off from the kids, and I think it was our anniversary last year, which was about, 7 months ago. But anyway, we went out to this really lovely restaurant, and they offered us snails. Like they were kept coming around with different platters, and one of them was snails, and I turned them down, and my husband had one. But I really regret it because that would have been a store. Like, yeah, it's just sort of not life changing, but I regret it because I should have done it. Just done it.
It's a story to tell someone. I've tried all sorts of things, some of which I regret now, but at the time it was fun and I still laugh about it.
So what's the worst thing you've eaten?
I was in Japan and we went out to, we were in this sea village, like a fishing village. And one of the things you can do in Japan, which is very traditional, is a kaiseki dinner. It's a degustation dinner with the local specialties, whatever the local specialties. It's a very kind of a fancy dinner. You have to have a bath before you do. You sit in a kimono. They serve sake and whatnot. And because we're in a fishing village, we got served a lot of sea food, or things from the sea. And, one of the things was in the shell, one of those beautiful shells, the one you can put next to your ear and listen to the sea. And you pulled things. So imagine snail on steroids. So you pull things. We had to pull this thing out, and it was kind of wiggly still. I don't know if it was raw or not.
Oh, it's gross.
But I was the only one who actually tried it, and I liked some of the other things that we had, but I did not. This is like one of the things that I really still remember. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. I still remember it in my mouth, and it was lucky sake was involved. Otherwise, but yeah, we were actually quite hungry by the end of that dinner because a lot of it was very adventurous. So we just drank sake.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Oh, if you can see my face right now, it's like I've sucked on a lemon. Like I'm going, oh, no.
Yeah, that was me.
Tracy doesn't do real alternate food. So, yeah, I can imagine that she's freaking out.
I can't even eat an oyster. So, yeah.
That's not for you then. But oysters something you can learn to love, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the way. Yeah. Kilpatrick maybe first. Start with cooked oysters, and then kind of move to the raw stuff.
It's the thought of it because it just looks like a big booger, and I just can't do it.
I never thought of it that way, but from now on,
next time you eat oysters, you'll go, "Oh God, now it just looks like a big booger." Oh, sorry, I've just ruined your oysters.
We are digressing a touch. Cool. All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you, Irena. That was great. Next time I travel, I'm definitely going to put some of those tips into place because you make it sound so easy.
I think it's about being prepared, like planning, being prepared, and getting organized before you go.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And then also relaxing at the same time, not stressing about it. Yeah.
So, Irena, before we say goodbye, we just want you to share we want to know a little bit about the new course, the program you have running.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I have a program. Seems to be like a thing to do at the moment. But no, it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And how it came out to be is, I've been doing paleo, not just the diet, but also the lifestyle part of it, which is all to do with, reducing your stress, managing your sleep, fermenting vegetables, going out hiking, reducing the toxic load within your house. And I know you guys are all into that sort of thing. Basically removing crap from your diet, obviously a big thing. So I know a lot about both the nutritional aspects of the diet, but also the lifestyle factors and what they can do to improve one's well-being and health. And, I always get asked, how do you get started? What should I do? What, how do I follow it? So it kind of made sense to put all of that knowledge into like an online course for people to do. And so I've partnered up with somebody here in the UK, that I've met ages ago. And we just started chatting about what we would like to create. And so it's a nutritional and sort of well-being program. It's kind of like a holistic approach to paleo. So it's not necessarily 100% paleo program in any way. It's more just for people that want to eat healthier and want to change their lifestyle habits to improve health and well-being. And, you know, for many people, it's weight loss. For other people, it's just getting more energy or better sleep. It goes for 9 weeks. And we do, what's a little bit different about this program to maybe other paleo programs out there is that it's completely guided, and we have a dedicated coach who is kind of following the journey of your journey and the journey of others within the group, and touches base with you on regular kind of intervals. You set goals together. We have an app where we track the food that you eat and, you know, exercise, and the coach is able to see what you log every day. And able to kind of give advice and tailor things depending on your particular goals. Yeah, so that's something that's a little bit different. And we found that that's really useful because it provides a lot of accountability, which some people really need in order to be able to follow a plan for more than 2 weeks. You know, they can do something on their own for a while, but after a while you lose motivation and you lose, you know, you start making kind of bad choices, I suppose, or you're not sure if you're going in the right direction. So we have a coach, which is a huge thing. And I'm also within the program on a daily basis, giving advice and chatting to people. But my main involvement, I guess, was that I developed all the meal plans for 9 weeks and all the recipes. So it's completely, you know, there's like over 100 recipes for people to use. So if anyone who's interested in sort of paleo as a foundation, I would say, rather than like a complete kind of lifestyle forever, but as a foundation to try it. And then, you know, in the last 4 weeks of the course, we actually do what we call recalibration, where we reintroduce some of the foods that we've eliminated in the first 4 weeks. We reintroduce them back, and we teach people how to monitor the symptoms and how to figure out whether they should be back in their diet long term. So that by the end of the course, you take the paleo framework and then you tailor it to be whatever you want it to be for you. So it's not like a hardcore kind of my way or the highway type program. It's more just we really teach people a lot about nutrition. And every week we focus on a different lifestyle topics. So we've got stress and sleep and environmental toxins. We've got Alex Stewart. We've got a PhD doctor talking about gut health. You know, so there's lots of information throughout and things like that. So it's a fun course. And I mean, like with your course, it's a great community as well. So for people that need that support, a group support, it's a really nice way to do something that's a little bit different.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Oh, and it's called Happy Body Formula. Sorry, I forgot to say the name of it. So it's a Happy Body Formula program, and the name it's all about making your body happier. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity for the plug, because it's fun, and it's, as I'm sure your readers will know from doing your own program, is that it really helps to do it with other people, right? And having you guys on board and just leading them throughout, it just makes such a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, we're happy to plug because, you know, we sort of have this philosophy where even though I guess some people might look at us as competitors, but we just look at it as in where we're all trying to aim for the one goal, and that's to make people healthier. So if we all stick together to do that, that's what we think anyway, that why not? Like, why think that you're our competitor when you're not? Like, you're someone who we're doing exactly the same thing, and we're all doing it together. And I just think that's amazing.
Absolutely. It's just putting a united front, really, because with the way that our industry is set up and the policies, you know, the only way they're going to change is if there is a big tipping point. And for that, we need to all work together towards better outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And look, where can people find you, as in your cookbooks and Eat, Drink, Paleo and those sorts of things?
Yeah, so you can go to my personal blog, which is eatdrinkpaleo.com.au, and that's where I mainly share my recipes, and that's kind of my outlet for creativity. So you'll find loads of free paleo recipes and a little bit of information about paleo and other stuff, just healthy eating. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Eat, Drink, Paleo. Just search my name, you'll find me. I'm kind of, you know, everywhere. It's a little bit hard sometimes.
Pinterest, I know you're massive on Pinterest.
Yeah, I love Pinterest. I'm a very visual person because I did an arts degree. So I have a thing for beautiful looking things. So I love Pinterest. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Irena. We're so happy you gave up your time and joined us all the way from London. London, aren't you?
Yes. No, totally my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I love what you guys do. I love how amazing your audience and your readers are. There's just so much love whenever I look at your Facebook groups and everything. It's really cool. So, yeah.
We're very lucky.
We are very lucky.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Well, you take care over there, and I think you're coming into summer and we're heading into winter. So, enjoy that. And, we'll chat again soon.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know about you guys, but Irena is just one big ball of knowledge, don't you think?
I know. I was sitting there nodding and then realising, people can't actually see me nodding along because it's a podcast and it's not a webinar. And I'm like, yep. And I was trying to write questions, but I was so intrigued by what she was saying. I was just listening and then couldn't think what my next question should be to ask because I was too intrigued in listening to what she was talking about.
Yes, she's very, very, very knowledgeable. Highly recommend checking her out on Facebook, her webpage, Pinterest, and everywhere that she is. She's fantastic.
Yeah, and she's a really lovely, down-to-earth, generous, very generous person. From the moment we met her, she's just so generous with everything, her time. Yeah, she's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
So if you haven't already, we would love for you to check out our website, which is full of amazing, amazing recipes and a whole bunch of information regarding additive and preservative-free eating. But if you want to check out the show notes as well for this podcast, you can do that at systemixon.com/podcast 8. And remember also to follow us on all our social media platforms. So we're on Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook, all at Systemixon. So you can find us on any of those and see you or talk to you guys again next week when we have another fantastic show for you to listen to. So stay tuned for more amazing interviews because we've got loads more lined up and we can't wait to bring them to you.
Thanks for joining us. See you guys.
Take care, everyone. Bye.